It's October 26, 2002, and in Delaware, a 34-year-old man is staring at a screen. He's watching the final race of the prestigious Breeders' Cup, the Classic, taking place 814 miles away. There's a lot at stake here because this is no ordinary gamble. He's already got the first 5 legs of a 6-race bet, and the jackpot is worth millions. But the gamble here isn't if he'll win, it's if he'll get caught. As he watches the final race unfold, his heart pounds out of his chest. He's never felt so alive, or terrified. He doesn't care which horse wins, it's meaningless, although he wasn't expecting it to be that one. It's a shock, and, although he's yet to realise, very bad news. To understand why, let's go back to 1 year earlier. It's the fall of 2001, and in Newark, Delaware, a senior programmer is stuck, as always, at his work's computer. When he'd landed himself this job, his friends thought that he was made. But now, he's bored. There's never enough time, or money, to have fun. Like the fun he'd had back in college. He works for AutoTote, a company that runs betting systems for pari-mutuel betting. Pari-mutuel betting is where all bets are pulled together, and payouts are shared amongst winning tickets. AutoTote handles 65% of all horse racing bets across America, in an industry worth $14.5 billion a year. Their job is to accurately process wagers and winnings on thousands of different betting events. It's a high-stakes environment where trust is everything. But our programmer's eyelids droop. He's not seeing any of that cash. To keep awake, more coffee is needed. Or excitement perhaps. Amongst the monotony, and purely by chance, he notices something. He checks again. There it is. A quirk. An opportunity. Buried within a sea of data, he's found dozens and dozens of unclaimed winning tickets. Bets which, for whatever reason, were never cashed in by the people who made them. What a waste. He can't help but think, what if somebody else could cash in the tickets? He'd only need to print them out after all. But he's no cheat. He's always done everything by the book. But the daily grind of corporate life is getting to him. Despite his efforts, everyone else always seems to get the credit. The temptation for a quick win is overwhelming. It doesn't take long for him to decide. He'll do it. But as an AutoTote employee, he can't bet. So if word gets out he's claiming winning tickets, he'll be in big trouble. So what does he do? He reaches out to a couple of old friends from his time at Drexel University in Philadelphia. Since the early 90s, he, Derek Davis and Glenn De Silva had formed a solid bond. Just like the computer programmer, Chris Hahn, both Davis, now living in Baltimore, and De Silva, up in New York, failed to graduate. The three were college dropouts. But unlike Chris, they never did get a top job, and they both still like to party. So when the sensible one amongst their gang explains that this is free money, they're in. First, Chris logs into the AutoTote database. Using a simple program he's designed, he pulls up all unclaimed tickets under $1,500. Wins that are small enough that neither the tote nor the IRS are likely to care about. Then he takes the winning barcodes, transferring them onto blank tickets, so there's now no data tying the tickets to a specific location, prints them off, and sends them to Davis and De Silva. Davis and De Silva then take these counterfeit tickets to tracks across New Jersey, New York and Pennsylvania. They promptly insert them into a betting machine and get back a voucher, which they then trade in for cash. Over a few months, the friends have banked over $90,000. The scam works like a dream, but as the money repeatedly pours in, so does the risk of getting caught. You see, as fast as their share of the money comes in, Chris's friends, Davis and De Silva, are spending it. Meanwhile, he's worrying about the volume of tickets they've picked up. What if one of the real ticket holders finds their ticket and then tries to claim it? The system would spot an error. If it happens once, it'll be fine, but if it happens repeatedly, questions will be raised. They need to bank a bigger win so they can reduce the amount of tickets that they're claiming. But what might seem like a smart move is about to edge them into dangerous territory. The Breeders' Cup takes place every fall, and in 2002, for the first time, it will be hosted at Arlington Park. It's a major event on the thoroughbred calendar, attracting huge betting pools and millions of people, thanks especially to a wager called the Ultra Pick 6. A Pick 6 is a bet on multiple results, like a parlay. It's where bettors have to pick the winner in 6 different races. For the Ultra Pick 6, it's the 6 major races at the Breeders' Cup, being the Juvenile, Sprint, Mile, Distaff, Turf and Classic. Now, because it's popular and hard to win, the Ultra Pick 6 has the kind of big payout the friends are after. Plus, it's less suspicious as the pot is often shared amongst multiple winners. Whilst poring over the way Auto handles such bets, Chris finds a chink in its armour. Gamblers can bet from parlours all around the country. Any bets that are still live after the second race of a pick 4 or fourth race of the pick 6, meaning that the bettor has correctly predicted all of the races so far, are then forwarded on to the Auto headquarters and then onto the track. There is though a delay between the end of that most recent race and the updated bets that are being sent. If you could access those bets during that 30-minute window, you could change them to the winning horses. And then, if you'd already bet the wheel on the final 2 races, backing every possible combination of winning horses, you'd be guaranteed a winning ticket. Now luckily, as an Auto super user, Chris is one of the very few people who has this access. But it's a high stakes plan, so Chris decides on a couple of warm-up runs with the silver making the bets. This is the stepping stone between their previous scam and the big one coming up. First, he identifies the kind of betting parlour where their scheme is least likely to get noticed. The Catskill off-track betting hub in Pomona, New York. Not only does Catskill allow accounts set up over the phone, meaning De Silva doesn't even need to show his face, but they don't take a secondary record of bets made from a touch-tone phone, meaning there's no proof of what the original bets actually look like. On October 3rd, De Silva bets on the Pick 4 harness races at Balmoral Park, Illinois. After the first 2 races, Chris uses his Auto access to hack into the Catskill off-track betting system and alters De Silva's bets, so now he's picked the winners on both. He already has every possible combination covered for the last 2 races, so his bets soon net them $80,000 profit. But this was just a warm-up. The real test was yet to come, one that would bring them more money than they could imagine, and more trouble than they could handle. 2 days later, on October 5th, they repeat the process in a pick 6 at Belmont Park, New York, and make $100,000 again. The scam works seamlessly, and so it's time for the main event. It feels like nothing can go wrong. Chris knows though that the Breeders' Cup isn't just another race day, it's a big one, meaning that there's greater scrutiny, which calls for extra caution. So in case De Silva's recent wins have caught anyone's attention, he tells him to sit this one out and instructs Davis to place the bets instead. Then Davis opens an account at Catskill, placing 156 Breeders' Cup Pick 6 bets costing $1,152. This makes sure every combination in the last 2 races is covered, and then they're underway. However, there is a small problem. When Chris gets his work schedule, unbelievably, on Breeders' Cup Day, he's not working. But he's not pulling out of the gamble right now. So on October 26th, he sneaks calmly into the Auto office and settles in at his desk. Nobody questions it. As racing gets underway, he remotely ejects the backup tape at Catskill, so none of what follows will be recorded. After the 4th race, and half an hour before the 5th, the turf, he hacks into their system, finds Davis's original bet, changes it to the 4 actual winners, and checks they're covered for every possible combo in the turf and the classic. He then gets Catskill to reinsert their tape, which he'd ejected by accident during routine maintenance. It's easily done, right? The adrenaline is pumping. They can't believe it's been that easy to secure a big jackpot win. It's the greatest moment of their lives, and in the end, the jackpot isn't just big, it's huge. One of the earlier races is won by an outsider, and against all odds, the very last race, the Classic, is won by a rank outsider, Volpony at 43-1. They never could have imagined it in their wildest dreams. Instead of sharing a jackpot with 20 or 30 people as they'd anticipated and banking a couple $100,000, they're now the only winners, worth, including various add-ons for winning 5 out of 6 races on some of their tickets, a mind-blowing $3.1 million. It's a twist that changes everything. Whilst being one of 30 smaller payouts might have gone unnoticed, being a single winner of $3.1 million inevitably attracts attention, and when the New York Racing and Wagering Board take a closer look, what they discover raises eyebrows. There's the Catskill Betting Parlour, a small, basic operation which doesn't keep records. Seems kind of convenient. Then there's the bettor, Derek Davis, a brand new account holder. How lucky is he? There's the nature of the bet, which is 4 perfect singles on the first 4 races, one of which, the mile, was won by a 26-1 outside shot dome driver, when everyone else was backing the 4-5 favourite Rock of Gibraltar, and then every possible winner covered for the last 2 races. It seems quite bizarre. And then strangest of all, Davis doesn't just have one winning combination on his ticket, he has 6. Suspicion mounts. And when Arlington Park tell Davis they'll be withholding his winnings so they can launch an investigation, Chris's elation turns to anxiety. If they don't get ahead of this story soon, things could turn very bad very quickly. So Davis decides the only way forward is to go on the offensive. "Man," he tells the New York Post, "I just picked a few horses and got lucky." He publicly demands his winnings and says the only reason for the 6 identical combinations, and so the bigger win, was that his finger slipped. Up and down the country, people believe him. They see a lucky guy, and a classic case of the bookies doing whatever they can to avoid paying out. But when Autotow launch their own investigation, questioning all of its employees in Newark, Chris knows it's the beginning of the end. They soon discover that he wasn't scheduled to work and had been in the office and had altered Davis's ticket. So promptly he's dismissed by the company, who hand their findings to federal officials, who then seize computers from Chris's home and office and subpoena his phone records. With the law closing in, De Silva refuses to point the finger. "I can't testify against a guy I've been friends with and has a 2-year-old daughter." On November 12th, Chris, Davis and De Silva are indicted and charged with 1 count of wire fraud in White Plains, New York. But in one final attempt to change the narrative, Chris agrees to fully cooperate with the investigation. The investigation, though, have everything they need. From phone records showing that calls took place between Chris and Davis during the races, to the Drexel connection at their previous university. And it doesn't take long for the Drexel 2 to become the Drexel 3, when they spot that De Silva, a guy who's also made similar bets through Catskill and was also a fellow frat bro, received an email from Chris the day before the Cup, asking for $30,000 to pay off a loan and mortgage. Chris knows that they've gambled and lost. It's clear they were eventually undone by bad luck, with those big outsiders making them the only winners, and of course greed. A win at the Cup would always attract attention, and those 6 winning lines, perhaps a mistake, were a step too far. Now their only card left to play is complete transparency, because federal law requires anyone cooperating with prosecutors to disclose all previous criminal activity. So Chris admits everything, including the previous unclaimed ticket fraud. On November 20th, Chris pleads guilty to conspiracy to commit wire and computer fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering too. He admits to rigging the Breeders' Cup, Balmoral and Belmont bets, and denying legitimate winners out of $92,500 with his duplicate ticket scheme. On December 11th, De Silva also pleads guilty to similar charges, but claims that he doesn't know Davis was in on the scheme and that he took no part in the Breeders' Cup bet. The following day, December 12th, Davis then pleads guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud and withdraws his claims to the money. Following a nerve-wracking new year, sentencing comes on March 20th, 2003. Chris escapes with the lightest sentence of a year and a day in federal prison. The judge, Charles Bryant, states that he could have received up to 5 years had he not helped the authorities. Davis and De Silva aren't so lucky, which is not helped by testing positive for cocaine on arrest. Davis receives 3 years and De Silva 2. US Attorney James B. Comey is asked if the case is worthy of a Hollywood movie. Referring to the 1973 crime caper, The Sting, he replies, "The movie was already made, but with much better looking people." Eventually, the trio's $3.1 million payoff is split amongst 78 people who'd bet 5 out of 6 races right, each getting $39,000 in addition to their original $4,600 prizes. Chris Hahn, meanwhile, leaves court with a heartfelt pledge. "I hope to pay my debt to society not with words, but with my future actions."